Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. This show today is about I Honor My Parents. It's about the campaign to empower families, especially parents, educators, in all they need and they have to do in their mission to raise the new generation into a new mindset for the world. It's not easy, but St. Augustine, in the Gospel According to Spiritism, very encouragingly said, it's not as difficult as you may think. How so? We want to know more, so we are very, very honored that a friend and a spiritist, Dr. Gilberto Rustis, is here with us to enlighten our minds on one very critical issue for parents. How do we conquer unity between parents in their educational system? It's not easy. We know why. Mostly because they come from different upbringings. And how they unify it. Are there courses? Should we have courses? There are so many questions. What does Spiritism say about it? What does psychology tell us? And you know, Dr. Rustis is here with us to tell us the ins and outs and also possible solutions so we understand much more. He is a family therapist and a marriage counselor, as well as a spiritist speaker in the USA. He has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy from Southeastern University. Also, Dr. Rustis holds a master's in business administration. He has been a spiritist for 40 years and started his studies in São Paulo, Brazil. Currently, he is the doctrinal director at Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center in Miami, Florida. And as a therapist, he has been helping a large number of couples and families in South Florida. And in the Spiritist Center, he's also helping at the fraternal counseling level. And he today will help us unfold the ins and outs of parents working on their unity as educators of their own children. We know it's not easy, but you know, we just talked about Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center. Dr. Rustis is there. And we cannot forget that this very moment, the show is being broadcast as well through our sister radio, Bezerra Online Web Radio, at www.spiritist.com. And when you go there, you can listen to shows in Portuguese, Spanish, English, in collaboration with the Spiritist Radio in Colombia. Beautiful program. And we need more and more of these, friends. If you're out there and you have the expertise, you have the voice, you have the knowledge, you have the time, you have the willingness, join all of us because we need a lot of help. It doesn't matter if you are in China, Australia, US, Canada, Brazil, you can help because through internet we can do a whole lot together. By the way, we want to remind you that everything we're going to talk about here today has a strong reference in chapter 14 of the book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. What if you were there struggling? Your marriage is struggling because of this very issue. You and your husband, you and your wife, you and your partner in general disagree in regards to how to educate your children. It can push the relationship to very difficult levels. What do? Well, we need to remind ourselves that Allan Kardec, in the Spirit's book, in a comment to answer of question 685, he talks about education. He says, there is an element that has not been sufficiently pondered, but without which economic science is nothing more than theory. Education. Not intellectual education, but moral education. Not moral education through books, but moral education that consists in the art of forming character. Moral education that creates habits, because education is the sum of acquired habits. When one considers the mass of individuals who are daily thrown in the torrent of the population without principles, without restraints, and handed over to their own instincts, can we wonder at the disastrous consequences? When the art of education is recognized, understood, and practiced, all individuals the world over will follow the habits of order and forethought to themselves and their dependents. They will respect whatever is respectable and will have habits that will enable them to less painfully endure unavoidable adverse days. Disorder and lack of forethought are two sores that only a sound education can heal. That is the starting point, the real element of well-being, the guarantee of security for all. This is the visionary mind of Allan Kardec, telling us about the importance of having a unified understanding about what education is, especially moral education. When we say moral education, friends, we're not talking about the dogmatic impositions of old times in the church. We're talking about the education of the mind, of the heart, of the spirit. And to talk about this and much more, we have here with us Dr. Rustis. But before we open the line for him, we'd like to kickstart the program with a beautiful message of hope and joy in the CD Enlightening Messages. It's by the educational mind of the spirit May May through the loving hands of Chico Xavier. Here we have it, and you can buy the CD or the book at the bookstore of the Spiritist Society of Baltimore at www.ssbaltimore.org. Let us listen to this beautiful message about joy.
Joy. Joy is the song of the hours when God caresses your passage through the world. Everywhere flowers bloom as smiles of nature, and the wind combs the field's hair with resting music. The water from the fountain is liquefied care in earth's heart, and the small golden grain of sand is a message of joy from the ground. Do not allow, therefore, that your difficulty transforms itself into numbing sadness for others. Even if everything appears to conspire against the happiness that you await, lift your eyes to the smiling face of life that envelops you, and bolster joy wherever you go. Bless and serve always, even among tears. The rose, although subjugated by thorns, still offers its perfume, and sunrise awaits generously for the night to finish in order to renew itself. Daily, in a party of love and light.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
A new great book and tool for kids and educators. The children's book, Our Father by the Spirit May May, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is available for purchase at www.edisayofamerica.com. Buy your copy today.
Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
The newest edition of the Medium's book by Allan Kardec is now available. Purchase your copy online or via your ebook reader. Simply go to www.edicofamerica.com today.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone, the online study of the Spirit's Book and the Gospel according to Spiritism. Spiritism for Everyone meets every Wednesday evening and Saturday morning using the latest technology in web conferencing. You can join in from any computer in the comfort of your home or office, no matter where you are in the U.S. or the world. Spiritism for Everyone is open, free, and requires no registration. To access the web live meetings, go to www.spiritus.us. Spiritism for Everyone is a program of the United States Spiritist Council.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, did you know that you can listen to these programs on demand, either at KardecRadio.com or blogtalkradio.com or at iTunes, and it's free. You can simply download at your leisure and listen to all the shows on demand for eternity. And we say eternity because it's going to be there forever. Nobody's going to ever take it away. So you can share as you're listening to this now. You're not missing anything because, you can listen to it again and again, another day. And, the Spiritist Society of Baltimore is broadcasting its Thursday sessions of study on Spiritism every 7 p.m. on Thursday, and you can listen to it directly here at Kardec Radio, not only at tvcei.com, but also at Kardec Radio. Yes, I know, you were there. You were there, you want to listen. How is it possible that we conquer parental unity in the world today, in which it's much preached that, discipline, harsher discipline should not be applied. Others say that it's important to be harsher and harder on the children. And then, parents have different opinions, problems mount, relationship problems, and possible divorce. I've seen couples actually divorcing over the many struggles they had on the educational mission of their children. It's sad, and we want to prevent it, remedy it, and that's the reason why we think Spiritism has a lot to help us with. Not only Spiritism, but its beautiful collaboration with science. And here we have to bring both to us Gilberto Rustis, who is a family therapist and marriage counselor, who has been also a Spiritist speaker in the United States. He has a master's degree in marriage and family therapy from Nova Southeastern University. He also holds a master's in business administration. He has been a Spiritist for 40 years, starting his studies in Brazil and now in the United States. He is the doctrinal director at the Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center in Miami, Florida, and has been helping large number of couples and families in South Florida. And also as a Spiritist counselor, he has been helping in the works of the Bezerra de Menezes Spiritist Center. Let us now open the line and welcome our dear Gilberto Rustis. Thank you so much for being with us today, Gilberto.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Gilberto. So, Gilberto, is it possible that two people who were raised in different ways, they get married and then they find a unified system to educate their children?
Well, your question starts with the word, is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Now, is it easy? Well, that's a completely different story. I can see, actually, I use a lot this kind of a theme when I'm talking about marriage in a spiritual center kind of a setting, because the thing starts right there. And before you have your kids, you're going to get married, generally. And we are putting, two kinds of people getting together to build a life that's mostly common life, hopefully. And they're coming from completely different backgrounds, from different socioeconomic status, from different neighborhoods, from different countries, from different everything, the way they had been raised. So the challenge, as far as your question is concerned, starts well before that. And so then comes the kids, the children. Mm-hmm. And then we you have to consider here, the couple, not only they're going to have all the differences we're talking about, but they are spirits, that have been around for maybe a million years, and they have accumulated different levels of intellectual development, spiritual development, and they may be at a completely different level when they get married, and then become the kids at a yet different level. So those all come to compound a situation that's not easy to handle, but yes, it is possible for parents to get together, be in line, be aligned, better yet, with importance on what's the best way to raise the kids.
But what are the issues that you usually see that are the most critical in regard to the difficulties of conquering this parental unity?
Well, that's great questions. You were mentioning divorce a little before. I started to talk, and you're absolutely right. There's a lot of divorce, including there are statistics that's going to show us. We all, just say about 50%, more or less of our, marriages here in the States, they end up in divorce. But when you look at the details of those numbers, you're going to see they have to do at certain critical points of the raising of their kids. For example, date of wedding plus 7 years, because the kids are going to be at, let's say, 4 years old. They're going to start to have the first issues in the preschool, and then you can go to date of wedding plus 14 years, and the kids are going to be like middle school, and preteen, and they just can handle a number of situations, and they end up getting to a point of conflict. They get divorced. Okay, and that's just the statistics. But yeah, the key to find out what to do is to learn what needs to be done. And I was just reading the other day, we are living nowadays a kind of a different world as far as technology is concerned, information. We have all this phenomenal scientific development that makes kids or puts kids in a completely different context than the ones that we used to see when we were raised. So using your gut feelings based on what you learned from your father, mother, it's not important. It's no longer what applies today, because this world is completely different than what it was when we were raised. So it's not a matter of saying, okay, I've been there, done it, seen it, so now I'm going to apply it to my kids. And then if you have the idea that, let's say you didn't like the way you were raised, and then say, I'm going to raise my kids completely different than the way I've been raised, and then you're going to get into an unknown field that's even worse. But the thing that I was saying is, people say, well, it's unfortunate that kids don't come when they are born with instruction manual. Well, I know this is just a say. We hear that in Brazil. I don't know if that's in here too. But the thing is, then I go back and say, well, that's no longer true. There's a ton of instruction manuals published in many different languages, and some of them are absolutely state of the art that can tell you almost by month what you should expect from a kid as they grow, as he grows. There's of course there were Piaget and Erickson, those guys that were the father of some of the basics, only now the basics, on cognitive development, social development. That base is still there. But what happens now is, or has been there for long, but now information is readily available, free on the internet, mastered, simplified, and transformed in books that you could almost use as a diary. And I keep saying that to my own son and daughter-in-law. So we need to as many people as I see in that situation, because we need to master, for example, the life cycles of a kid. We all go through human development stages as we grow up and until we die.
But Gilberto, let me just interrupt you for a second to ask this question. But the problem is, I've been through psychology courses, etc. You did too, etc. But what about those who have no clue whatsoever about, the developmental stages of a child?
Right, that's a great question again, because I asked that myself too. So not everybody has, or has had the privilege as we did to understand that information available, etc. Schools could help a lot in that sense, and they do. Schools here in the States are prepared with their gynae counselors to recommend some course of actions and what to look for. And, of course, a relationship between the parents and the school is very important in that sense. Now, as a spiritist, you just mentioned, as part of your introduction, some of St. Augustine and other things from the spiritist books. Let's not forget ourselves that what's in there in the gospel is that we, have innate what we need through intuition, through inspirations, and through what we have accumulated from prior lives. What we need to raise our kids, to be fathers and to be parents. God would not trust us. That's a big assignment. It's a huge assignment to be parents, to raise one of His sons, and then also with the view that when we go back over there, He's going to ask us, "What have you done with the son that I trusted you?" So He could, of course, we all have, as spirits, the basis that we need to raise our kids.
So, Gilberto, you're saying that, as the spirits say, being a parent is a mission, right? So if it is a mission, for every mission, for example, to be a doctor, we take courses. To be a nurse, we take courses. To be a lawyer, to be etc. And the most important mission, which is to be a parent, there are no courses available. Or are there courses available? And Kardec is talking about the art of forming character. Is this innate? Or is this something that really can be conquered through further instruction and awareness?
Okay. I guess we can make a parallel here with, like, for example, you were born with a certain level of information, knowledge, spiritual development, intellectual development, but you don't know about anything like the spiritist, the spirit's book, or the gospel until you get to know it, and then you read it, and then you improve from there. Everything that was in your baggage from the past is going to come back and help you. Well, in that sense, we have always been there, have learned a lot, so through God only knows how many times we've been parents, and we bring that. However, we have here, just like we do when we're learning about a new science or a new religion or a new chapter of gospel, we need to take a dive into that matter and then digest that, and then you're going to be, let's say, up to speed, including the incremental information that has been developed.
Okay.
How can it day to day?
Gilberto, we have here with us a call from Jay. Jay is from Canada, and he's here with us now to ask you a question. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Pretty good. It's great to talk to you again. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for being here and bringing great questions. Please feel free to relay it to Dr. Rustis.
Yes, hello, Dr. Rustis.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Hey, pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Just watching the rain here in Florida. That's something that we don't have all the time.
Great to hear. Hey, I've got a question for you, and maybe a second question too. Is that what if the child in the family starts to become more spiritual than their parents, and can't see their point of view because it doesn't fit their own paradigm anymore? I'll ask that first question, and I'll have a second question after that.
Okay. Well, actually, this is a very timely question because we are here in the times of receiving spirits like the crystals and the indigos, and they come with, in many cases, with a background that's much bigger than their parents. Of course, it's not going to show in the first day, but it's not going to take long to show. And we know through the spiritism that has been happening forever, that the sun spirits incarnate, in a family with the mission to help that family out, perhaps to reconcile or do something better than what they did in the past. And this is a challenge, and I can see the kids, pushing for something that's more spiritual versus the parents pushing for something that's more material. There's no simple answer to that. There's no, let's say, a prescription other than kind of analyzing if that gets to a big conflict, and if they can get help from a professional, or at least if they even not very frequently go to a church and look for help, then chances are better for them to understand what's going on with that kid. Because in the beginning, Jay, the parents are not going to say, well, my son has a spiritual level much bigger than ours and we are in trouble. They're going to say, my son is behaving kind of a funny, or he's talking about things that I don't understand. I think he must have a problem. He's talking about this. For example, let's say the kid can see things, and then they are going to take him to a psychiatrist, and then from that to a psychologist. So one way or the other, I guess the issue is going to work itself out because we're talking about a kid that's smart, is spiritually more advanced, but it's going to be a long road.
Makes sense. It makes sense. So Jay, you said you had another question too, right?
Yeah, just wondered regarding relationships between parents and the children. Is that does it differ between races right now in this period of change? I just wondered if you see some commonalities right now, and if there's any race differences or something like that, because I just wonder if there's any. I don't think there's anything, but I just wonder if you see anything from your point of view.
Well, Jay, that really throws us into a huge world of differences, considering cultural elements, and then the elements of the country-specific development level. For example, you can just look into what's happening in this country here, in the States, where compared to 20 years ago, now kids are suffering from overbooking or overscheduling, so they don't have time to sit down at the table to have dinner with the parents anymore. And in any psychologist is going to say, or even a religious person is going to say, time with the family, quality time, and keeping and building that bond that you're talking about, Jay, that's absolutely critical for a healthy development of the kid. And the kid here in the States now, they are overbooked because after school they go to sports and then or to music classes, and then there's competition. And they need to get good at everything. It's weekends when they have the competition, so they have to go to somewhere for the baseball competition. And that starts early on. It's not when they are finishing high school. So here in the States, relationship with the kids has come to a point where there's no time for it, and that's real bad. That's really complicated. It's very dangerous. Okay, let alone the fact that the parents don't have the same time as they used to do. So at some cases, they have to put their kids in the music class so they have time to do something else. So it's really a very important question. Now, when I go to other places, less developed, where the competition has not gotten in there yet, so they are going to have more time to build that relationship with the kids. And then, not like, I'm not saying, doing education the way, used to be good. No, I'm saying that building relationship is absolutely crucial. Showing your love, showing your care, showing that you are there for the kids. Instead of being a parent that is just following up on the schedules and results, it's going to be more like a parent. It's going to be more like a friend. Friendship is absolutely fundamental for a strong relationship.
It makes sense.
Oh, I have a second question that really follows that other one, if I may. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. Shoot.
Oh, this is actually, I was looking at your picture on your website or on your screen there too, and I'm an older generation too. And when I grew up, we only had 2 channels, and we sat around the table and had conversation. But I went to a restaurant recently, and I saw a father and son talking about what they were doing. They weren't eating disgusting. They were actually involved in their own cell phones and stuff like that. And I got to say, technology, I was wondering what your point of view about technology is destroying the parent and child relationships just dramatically right now, because you were saying about music and stuff like that. I think it's more and more technology is really, whether it's video games, the social network and stuff like that, is really destroying the communications and that. I just wonder if your thoughts are like that too.
Yeah, Jay, as I drive to the office or whatever, and then you look at those cars, and there's a mom and a kid, or a father and a kid, and the kid's going to have his earbuds on. So he's listening to music or doing something else. He's not talking to the father. And me, that are curious about, behavior and stuff like that, I keep saying, when do they talk? When do they say, okay, can we now talk? And I have a question for you, Dad, or the father has a question for the kid. So I don't know. It drives me like, where is this going, right? Now, on the other hand, if you want to be really pragmatic, it's not the kid's fault. The technology is there. Yes, technology is good, as long as you use this as it should, it was designed for. If the kid becomes addicted to something, it's not entirely the kid's fault. Not putting the earbuds down during the car ride to the school, because what is that a sign of is a lack of relationship, a lack of proximity, a bond, lack of starting at the beginning with some sort of agreement. Say, well, why don't we take this time? So I see we're so busy with your homework and everything else. Maybe we should take this time to perhaps talk about whatever we want to talk about, right? So it starts from developing. Communication and relationship needs to be developed. That's my sense of it.
All right. Jay, are you would you like to ask any other question this moment?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting topic, because I just find that families are just they're so busy with so many other things. I think we have so many distractions out there, and I find people who live outside of the city have sometimes a better lifestyle than we have in the city. Raising a child, just because there's so many distractions out there. I just wonder, when you counsel families, do you tell them to maybe stay away from technology and stuff like that, or do you just comfort them? Because I just wondered, there's a difference in comforting people, let them lead their life and whatever, a disunity or something like that, or do you say, maybe just see they get a little bit less off a cell phone, or a little bit of video games and stuff like that? I just wondered. Yeah, is it a tough call for you when you do that?
Oh, actually, it's a question that most parents ask. Say, well, my daughter wants to get into the Facebook. What do you think? Of course, I ask the questions, and the way I see it, Jay.
And by the way, Gilberto, how old is she? 5, 10?
Well, the one that came to my mind was like 9 years old, and by the regulations, nobody can be there before 12 years old or something like that. So for the kid to be there, and there's a lot of them in there, it has to be there illegally, right? So you cannot be on Facebook before 12 or 13. I don't remember the exact number right now. But going back to your question, Jay, so I am a fan. I really like technology. I like to be up to date, up to speed as to the latest. Now I'm already looking to this new Google thing that's coming out. So, and then I see this as something that make my life better, easier to handle, and everything else. What I do tell my clients is, of course, before we need to do a little analysis. What is the age? What is your kid looking for what, right? And then we go from there, and it's a matter of putting rules. Let's say we're talking about the early or young teenager, right? And is supposed to live by the rules. So you need to have rules. You need to have follow-up on that. You need to have an agreement. It must be a negotiated thing, because let's face it. You tell a young teenager, say, I don't want you on Facebook. He will be there. He will be on Facebook, one way or the other. And particularly if you tell him not to. So you might as well teach him how to use what's important in Facebook. And one of the tricks that I tell my clients is, part of the agreement you make with your son is saying, okay, I'll let you on Facebook as long as you invite me to be your friend. Well, as his friend, you're going to be able to see what's going on, right? And so you cannot tell the kid not to, because they will, one way or the other, depending, of course, on the age, but most of them will be let's say they are in a situation where they're trying to identify themselves in the group. There will be peer pressure and this and that, and they're going to be the only one with no cell phone, for example. They're not going to feel good. So you cannot hide from technology. You cannot hide from the scientific progress. We might as well then join it and learn how to use it to the point that we can transfer that knowledge, including the risks and opportunities, to that kid.
Makes sense. Thank you, Gilberto. Jay, we thank you again and again for being this constant and active presence here at Kardec Radio. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you much again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr.
All right. So we are going to give another break, and when we come back, we have more. Should we take courses to be good parents? Is that possible? So let us go for a break. Dr. Rustis is going to answer this question to us.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Enjoy this new release. We're Born for Love, by the renowned Brazilian scientist and researcher on reincarnation, Dr. Hernani Andrade. This novel describes one of the most extraordinary and genuine cases of reincarnation ever studied by Dr. Andrade's Brazilian Institute of Psychobiophysics Research in Sao Paulo State. Order your copy now at roundtable.uk@gmail.com or at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children two paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are talking about the art of forming character, education, moral education, the mission of parents. It is the mission of parents. Parents often think that it is on the teachers at school to do so. So, Dr. Rustis, we are here with Dr. Rustis, Gilberto Rustis, who is a family therapist, marriage counselor, and also a spiritist. And he has been helping many people from both ends. So, Gilberto, one of the things is we observed today, after the many good questions that Jay asked us, was today many parents feel that it's on school teachers' hands to form the character of the child. And that's another struggle also that mounts into the relationship of parents. What do you think about this?
Well, this is really your question is. I mean, the assumption behind the question is correct. So that the parents do think that teachers at the school could do a better job. The fact of the matter is, they don't even have the time anymore to treat each kid individually. You know, in the last few years in this country here, because of budgeting and all that stuff, the schools have been suffering for lack of resources and funding, and they started to cut back wherever they can to survive. And it's going the other way around. The kids go to school and they are supposed to learn somebody's supposed to learn at the school, leaving for the mom and dad what they're supposed to learn from mom and dad. Mm-hmm. Now, and of course, mom and dad say, well, you know, I want you to do this and that. Well, this is not what I want. This is not what we offer here. It's not what we are prepared to do. And then the mom is going to go, perhaps talk to the director, perhaps make a lot of buzz about it, when it's actually the fact of the matter is the school is there for a purpose. It's always been there. There was a time when the school could do better, and nowadays the parents must do what they're supposed to do and do not expect the school to work on moral issues, on social skills that goes beyond a certain point. Of course, they do the basics, no doubt about it. But let's say, for example, a kid has a certain type of misbehavior. What the school teacher is going to do is going to talk to somebody at the school, normally the guiding psychologist, and then she is going to call the parents and say, okay, I think you want to take your kid to see your pediatrist or your psychologist because of this or that, and that's up to the parents to do. So we should not count on the school to do what the parents are supposed to do.
But you know, before I go further down into this issue about how to recognize issues if you don't know they possibly exist. So, but before we go there, Dr. Rustis, I would like to ask you this question. piggybacking on what Jay said about competition, because in the spiritist framework, we do not encourage competition, because as the promised consoler, Jesus didn't come, compete with one another. He said, love one another. And loving one another is not showing that you're better and you know better. So being raised in a spiritist family like myself, having 4 brothers, so we are 5, we were never, ever encouraged to compete amongst ourselves, not even with our classmates. We were always encouraged, like, do your best for yourself and appreciate the best in others as well. And we had never had problems amongst ourselves in regard to showing like we're better than the other. But we see families in which parents, they don't refrain from praising one kid over the other, or even the worst case scenario, talking bad about one of the children to the sibling, which really sparks greater flames in regards to competition. Do you see often these issues happening in the clinic and in the counseling in general that you do?
Well, actually, it's interesting that it depends on whom you talk to. You talk to the parents, and they're going to tell you, I treat them equally. I love them the same. So there's no difference the way I love one versus the other. And I try to be as fair as I can, and this and that and that. And then you take that, and then one day you bring in the kid to the room, and the kid's going to say, I'm this ugly duck here in my family, and my brother takes everything. So, but I just keep what's left over for me, right? And then we right there and then, okay, we have a situation that's not. I would venture to say that a serious father or mother will not distinguish between kids on purpose. They would do this out of lack of awareness or precipitation or contextual things. And in a room though, they are going to have an opportunity to experience something that's very important, which is to hear the son saying, I feel that I've been treated differently than the others. Why is that? So there's an opportunity for a conversation that's going to be very productive, because both sides have a view of the situation, and both sides in those situations can be easily reconciled once there is an understanding. So yes, those things happen, but it's again. The parents normally have a different view than the kids.
And you see, because we're talking about raising them, preparing them to become adults. And as Kardec says, the impact that they will have in society. So parents' business is everybody's business, because that child is going to be a member of the society that will play a role. And it's everybody's business. The problem is when you incite some, even if it's like subliminal forms of competition, when parents don't refrain from praising one before the other, because they have that twisted mindset. I've seen parents say, I'm going to praise this one because maybe the other one's going to feel like jealous and start pushing harder on himself. It doesn't work that way. And they don't understand that these patterns will actually play an enormous role later in life in the social network that each one of them will have besides their own families. And in this case, where does the reincarnatory element plays a role? Because sometimes these differences and the incitement of competition, or I saw a show on TV, Gilberto, about a family, and the father had 3 children, a girl and 2 boys. The older one was about like 15. The youngest one, the other boy, was about like 7. And the father, he barely talked to the little one, and he often called the 15-year-old to come and play golf, and the other one. And when he played golf with the little one, he was always saying, "Oh, you're sissy, you're this, you're the other," really putting him down. So you can tell there's probably a reincarnatory issue there playing a role in the educational way of this father towards this boy.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many aspects to your question. Let me start with, at the very beginning you said, we raise kids to be adults that are going to be able to cope with this world and this and that. I guess I would just put the word responsible adults. So it is our responsibility to raise kids in a way they are going to be responsible adults in the most broad sense, latter senses it can be. And now, of course, when a parent tells the other kid, look at your brother, how come you're not, he's a winner, she's not using those words, but basically she's saying, a winner and you were a loser, how come, right? And then the guys take that inside saying, well, I'm not good enough. What am I doing here? I'm going to be always a loser. I'm not good enough. I cannot be a parent. I cannot be anything. Because, there's this voice that's lying to him, and he's absorbing that lie. And he's grown then in a world that's full of competition, that's divided into winners and losers. And guess what? Right now, he needs to grow so much to be a winner that's maybe impossible. So that's the kind of a thing we are creating in the minds of our kids when we do that. And then the last part of the question is reincarnation has to do with that? Definitely. It's a challenge this kid is facing with no explanation for now, but certainly there is an explanation. He's probably there to accomplish something that's beyond the ability of that mother and father to understand right now. So he's just treating him as a loser when actually his mission is yet to come for that family. It could be, maybe he's going to be the one that's going to teach, for example, humbleness to that family.
And what about the reincarnatory role there? Because, for example, sometimes there are adorable parents who are even, if they are not spiritists, they are Christian, or they have a strong religious background, they have good moral ethics, but they observe that amongst their children, there is one that really outstands, is smarter, is a go-getter, etc. And they don't tell others, oh, he's better, but they give him more attention, they give him more this and the other. And the other ones, of course, they, as you said, they feel it. And because if this child does not have a less, as Spiritism says, the wounds of humanity are selfishness and pride. If this person is selfish and prideful and really feels like, I am the best, I got this and I got that, it's really going to create a more, let's say, struggle for parents to minimize it, because that child really wants that the parents prefer him, that the parents show that he's the best, that he's better than the others. That and if they're not spirits, they don't understand that whether or not you're the best, if God doesn't allow you to achieve a certain thing or get your degrees and your position, you're never going to get them, because it's a matter of reincarnatory plan. So where does the idea that there is reincarnation and reincarnatory plan have a good role guiding parents into their missionary method?
Yeah. You see, I can see here, in a perfect world here, because, Spiritism gives you the general guidelines. It doesn't come down to specific cases. But if we just take the big picture, I can kind of speak to one situation here where this kid that right now has all this issue of being the big winner, the big guy, glorious, and all the best of the world. And, of course, that guy came to earth with a high level of pride and selfishness and to deal with, to work on. And he was put in a family that had the capability to help him, right? So I can see a situation where the parent's mission is, okay, I have been given this spirit here to take care of, and his top priority is to work on his pride and selfishness issue. Now, remember, in the same chapter 14, parents are going to do a better job, much better job, if they do what's in there in that chapter 14, which is from the beginning, keep a very close eye on the patterns, on the missing a word here, on the tendencies, right, of the people showing, including pride and selfishness, and work on them as while they are still flexible, their spirit is still open. And, of course, as we know, we all have been given this period of time before we are adults to have a much better ability to change and to accept influence. And that's exactly when the parents should pay the most attention, work the hardest, because once that window of opportunity is gone, it's going to be almost impossible to change anything. So to answer your question, I can see, we say, just Andrea Luis says, we are here with the right family, with the right people around, and the right work, the right resources, etc., according to our spiritual and moral development. So you can look at that family and look at any other family as being some sort of a match. So, and the need of one is supposed to be addressed with the help of the other one under the same roof, and that would apply to the case you brought up too, according to my views.
So, would you say Chico Xavier once, as you know, Gilberto, when he had those classical gatherings under the avocado tree, literally, people would gather from all over the place. It's funny, people talk nowadays about John of God, they have no idea. If they see the pictures of the thousands of people that would gather around Chico Xavier, they would be mesmerized about the line of many blocks, kilometers to see him. And one of his statements that is published actually in a reliable book, Under the Shade of the Avocado Tree, he said once in those meetings that we should have courses for parents and for couples. The problem is, as far as we know, when we talked about it before the show, these courses seem to be only at churches, but Spiritist centers not in the United States. I've heard some in Brazil. They offer them. What do you think about this statement? Would science, the psychological sciences, also validate this statement?
Well, this is, such a profound question, because it really takes me back to one of the, I won't say criticism, but one of the things that I think a lot about is we have Joanna de Angelis that took a lot of time to put together, used to be 13 books about psychology, and that's not for the birds. That's for us to use, but to use how? And then people say, well, but the Spiritual Center is for us to read, to study Jesus and the Gospel, etc. Well, are we interpreting Joanna de Angelis correctly? Are we interpreting the needs of families and young people, those that are going to get married, those that are just born, correctly? Because if we are, then we need to start teaching things that are going to be very important to parenting in So we cannot just leave the spiritual psychology outside. We cannot leave an opportunity to talk about what is it that it takes to have a stable relationship. You know, what is love? To start with, and what one might as a partner, as a husband or a wife. What's my role? What's going to be my role as a wife, and so on and so forth. So I don't know of any courses here, and I know some in Brazil that are kind of a mandatory by other churches, but they assume people can be instant experts as being parents or husbands or wives, and I personally don't believe in that. I believe in churches, particularly in our church. The Spiritist centers to have a program, to have a plan to develop great husbands, great parents from the beginning. Throughout all the courses, we do that. That's my view.
Yeah, it's an ongoing program. It makes so much sense. And just for reference to people there, for example, the Brazilian Spiritist Federation offers, courses, programs, and offers even Spiritist education for babies. And it's fascinating because it goes hand in hand with the teachings, because behind the body of the baby, there's a millennial spirit that may not have a body fully mature to express itself, but it's absorbing. Because as you know, right, Gilberto, neuroscience already shows that in the first stages of life, all you need is exposure to stimulus to really form the pathway. So, and parents really need, as you said at the very beginning, quite wisely, is we needed to share with parents all about child development so they know what's going on. I remember a mother, I'll never forget this experience. She was pregnant, and she told me, and she was touching her belly and saying, I don't know if I should have this child. And I was like, do you know that your child is receiving exactly what you're saying? And she was surprised. She was like, and this was inside the university that I work in. And I said, you didn't know about it? Science already says about prenatal experiences. So it's not an esoteric feeling or mindset. It's really like tangible. And we have a lot of neurobiology to support that whatever is happening during pregnancy is really going to impact. And she was like, no, I didn't know. I said, refrain, change your mindset. Don't say these things because the baby is receiving it. So it's really an education that, as Montessori said, begin with the person herself, right? I think this is the climax of the conversation, Gilberto. In your practice, would you say that to be a good parent, you need to observe yourself and know more about yourself?
That's absolutely right. I would agree 100%, for 110 if I could. Because if you don't know yourself, you don't understand your weaknesses, where you could be better as a person. And then, a person is not just a person. A person is a worker, is a father, is a wife. A person is a lot of things. And if you don't have the basics and you don't understand your basics, then how can you do a good job? So it's absolutely impossible to do this self. But then again, how would the person be prepared to understand the self? What's missing? What's too much? Right? And we end up going back to, part of it's in there and we're unconscious, and part of it is through studies and through religion. When I see these people sitting in the room when we're having these lectures, and I always wonder, what are they taking home? Be reflecting on the important stuff we're talking here, or just taking the words. Because if you can't reflect on these Jesus' teachings and Kardec's and John Evangelist, Emmanuel's, so you are not really utilizing the best way all those teachings. You have to take those home and take this inside. And, look at the question 919, the famous question in the Spiritist book. So you have to read that and then say, okay, where do I stand relative to that? And then, where do I want to go from there? So to answer your question, if you don't know yourself, it's like you don't know where you are going and what you're doing.
Exactly. So, Gilberto, we're going to go for another break, and when we come back, we'll have your final comment, okay?
Okay.
All right. So
we will return to our program after these messages.
Hi, this is Nara Venditti with Succeed in America by Packaging Your Brilliance, helping foreign-born and immigrant professionals succeed in the workplace. Our topic today is 2 TH sounds, th as in thermal and the as in this. When T and H are spelled together, they can denote 2 sounds, th and the. And I know these sounds may be very challenging to pronounce. Even American-born children who grew up speaking English almost always normally learn the sounds last. With the exception of Castilian, Spanish, and Greek, English is the only language that uses these 2 sounds. Let's learn how to pronounce th. Place your tongue in between your upper and lower lips. Slightly blow the air through your teeth, as if you're blowing on something hot. If you look in the mirror, you should see the tip of your tongue. And I know that in some cultures it's inappropriate to stick your tongue out, but the more you practice, the less obvious it will be. So go to your bathroom or mirror and just practice. Repeat after me. Thankful. Thank you. 3. Thermometer. Think. Growth. Path. Math. Pronunciation of sound the is the same, only it is voiced, which means that your voice vibrates, your voice cords vibrate. Practice. The, this, these, those, together, there, thanks, think, throw. Here is a very useful tip for you. If you put your finger or 2 on the throat when pronouncing voiced sound the, for example, the, this, that, them, they, you will feel vibration. When you do that for the unvoiced sound, th, as in think, throat, the throat does not vibrate. To make practicing this sound fun, use tongue twisters. 13 thieves bathe 3 times on Thursday. The thick thistles thrive through the thunderstorm last Thursday. Repeat after me. The thick thistles thrive through the thunderstorm last Thursday. This is Nara Venditti with Succeed in America by Packaging Your Brilliance, helping foreign-born and immigrant professionals succeed in the workplace. And if you have any questions, please email me at Nara, N-A-R-A, at succeedinamerica.com, S-U-C-C-E-E-D, in America.com. And thank you again for listening.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
For the first time ever, the book Between Heaven and Earth by the Spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is now in English. This is a novel that offers information about the relationship that exists in the activities of the Spirit on the 2 planes of life. Purchase your copy today at www.edysayofamerica.com.
Nourish Your Soul with Kardec Radio.
Now in English, the book Action and Reaction by the Spirit André Luiz, psychographed by Chico Xavier. Buy your copy online or via your ebook reader. Go to www.edysayofamerica.com. www.ediceiofamerica.com today. The International Spiritist Council is organizing and promoting the 7th World Spiritist Congress, which will be held in Havana, Cuba on March 23rd through the 25th of 2013. The Congress theme will be Charity and Spiritual Education in Building a World of Peace. 150 years of the Gospel according to Spiritism. For more information, please visit www.7cem.org.
And now we return to our program.
We are here talking about conquering parental unity in raising our children. And Dr. Gilberto Rustis, who is a family therapist, a marriage counselor, and he has been sharing the spiritist and the psychological view on it. So, Gilberto, what would you say in your final comments regarding if there is any, like, we love recipes, right? Is there a recipe that parents could follow through to conquer that unity?
Well, there's no recipe, but all the recipes have one thing in common, which is love. Without love, there's no way. Without that friendship, without development that bond, that dependency on each other, there's no way to get there. Because, yes, it's going to be a bumpy road. It's not going to be an easy task. The kids are not going to be ready until their brains are ready, for example, to learn a lot of things that adults want them to learn when they're 5 years. So that's why they need to be concerned about the things that they should know to be good parents. So no, not a prescription, but some of the stuff is very common no matter where you go for information. We do know parents and caregivers what they are supposed to do. They need to make sure the children are healthy and safe, for example, and then equip them with the skills and resources to succeed as responsible adults, to transmit basic cultural values to them. And they are supposed to offer their kids love, acceptance, appreciation, encouragement, guidance. Again, those are things that are very basic and very common everywhere. And, of course, the last bit is to provide the most intimate context for the nurturing and protection of children as they develop their personalities, their identities, in their life, their career, all the way. And remember, kids need to learn a lot of things and need to mature physically, cognitively, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. Now, having said all that, somebody may say, well, gee, I'm going to jump out of the window. No, it is not a mission impossible. It is a mission possible. And we have the basics. And even if you don't have any other thing, make sure you're going to love your kid and be his best friend. That's half of the way. That's I guess, my last comment.
All right, Gilberto. We thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your heart here with us at Kardec Radio. Thank you so much, and we hope to have you back soon in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much to you and all the audience. And yes, as soon as possible, we'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you. So, dear listener, of course, this is just a teaser because there's a lot to know. And, of course, for example, one of the issues that people may ask is also about how much spirit influence in a family may play a role as well in our children's education. Sometimes the spirits that don't want them well or don't want the parents well and can create a whole difficult scenario. So in that regard, we would like to share with you that Spiritism has a lot of, as Gilberto said here to us, there is a lot to give. And you, if whatever you are, find a Spiritist center. If you don't have one nearby, travel a little bit further, because sometimes people go, oh, it's 30 minutes away. 30 minutes, it's nothing compared to people who need to travel 2 hours to get to a Spiritist center. So it's a matter of priority, and we're talking about the true mission of parents. It's most important in the Spirit's book. There are questions and answers specifically regarding this. If you go there, you won't miss it, and it's very enlightening. So right now, would like to share with you that Kardec Radio has, several segments from Spiritism in Your Life with Dr. Magalhães, Spiritism Moment with Christian de Mello, God at Home with Naur Fonseca and Gabi Ferreira, and also the Spiritist Education for Youth with Bernadette Leal. And now we're going to stream those beautiful segments that were put together for the show today. And at the very end, we're going to invite you to join us into a beautiful prayer for our families.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Enjoy this new release. Reborn for Love by the renowned Brazilian scientist and researcher on reincarnation, Dr. Anani Andrade. This novel describes one of the most extraordinary and genuine cases of reincarnation ever studied by Dr. Andrade's Brazilian Institute of Psychobiophysics Research in Sao Paulo State. Order your copy now at roundtable.uk@gmail.com or at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com.
Spiritist Network, your gateway to on-demand Spiritist videos. www.spiritistnetwork.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want to find a good way to explain life after physical death to kids or teenagers? Check out the book Message from a Teen in the Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio and psychographed by Chico Xavier. In this book, a teenager named Carlos explains his impressions on the new life in the spirit realm with his discarnate relatives and new friends. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
In the book, A Primer on Being Good by the Spirit May May, psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier, explains in simple language appropriate for children two paths in life, the path of good or the path of evil. God has granted us the freedom to choose either one. Purchase your copy online at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Now we return to our program.
Dear Kardec Radio listener, welcome to our segment Spiritism in Your Life. Today I invite you to think on your role as a children educator. You might tell me, Joyce, I don't have kids, I don't work in childhood education, therefore this matter is not related to me. And I can tell you, regardless the fact of having kids or working in a school environment, we all have a crucial role in our kids' education, because I'm sure that everyone has contact with children at some point in our lives. Therefore, dear listener, you all do have a role as a children educator, because every time you have a chance to meet a child, it could be an important chance to teach and to learn as well. Childhood is a precious time when the spirit recently incarnated is open to receive new ideas, concepts, and definitely more open for moral transformation. In other words, this is exactly the time when educators can really make a huge difference in the spirit's moral character and help him to overcome inherited difficulties, vices, and mistakes from previous life experiences. The Brazilian philosopher and educator Regis de Moraes, who published more than 30 books, mentioned in his book Spirituality and Education, unfortunately not translated to English, that education is a complex process. The task of education is of the whole society, not only of parents and teachers. It is with the family that the child develops its first and fundamental values in proper affective environment, which is the dynamics of education by affection. When finally the time comes to work also on the knowledge, it's time to send children to school, which should be an environment that must combine affection and education. Moreover, it's very common to think that education is just the process of integration of children in society. It is true that education has a socializing aspect, but it is important that this process of socialization in children respect and encourage their critical judgment and not simply teaching the child how to live in a society following the patterns of selfishness and pride that dominate the current social and political relationships. It's common to hear, we need to teach our kids to live in this world. They need to be strong to succeed. And then educators forget the most important essential tool in children education, love. If we are able to teach our children the true and pure love taught by Jesus, there is no way they won't become successful person in their lives. But for sure, to understand this basic principle in childhood education, we need to change the standards required by a society where selfishness and pride still prevail. How can we do that? We start by changing ourselves. That is the only way we will be able to become good examples to our children, and future generations may live in a society where love will prevail. Walter Oliveira Alves, a Brazilian spiritist, brought to us in one of his books entitled Education of the Spirit, not translated to English, that the child is a reincarnated spirit who comes with a life program drawn up by the spiritual world, which provides the basic needs for that evolving reincarnated spirit. Therefore, it is easy to see that the needs vary greatly from spirit to spirit. So each spirit is reborn in the environment that will be more favorable to their inner development, with a program of life outlined in the spiritual world. And education will be a key determinant to help these spirits to succeed in this life experience. As Walter Oliveira Alves says, education in its essence is not a simple process of construction of knowledge accumulated by previous generations, but a process of transformation and growth. And all education activity should be associated with share of love, the most powerful tool to change hard hearts and start positive in their transformation. According to Pestalozzi, the higher feeling of someone who has developed within himself the capacity to love can serve to stimulate the development of the same feeling in the learners. When vibrate love, our sense reaches all creatures that surround us, involving them in a higher energy which warms up their divine seed, providing conditions for its flourishing. This is the main function of the educator, to awaken the divine seed that the child already has, assisting their development through adequate life experiences. For this, the educator must vibrate at increasingly higher level, creating conditions that allow the children to learn to vibrate higher as well. In other words, to love. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 11, item 9, the Spirit Fenelon said, "The effects of the law of love are the moral betterment for the human race and happiness during earthly life. Do not do unto others what you would not want them to do unto you. On the contrary, do unto others all the good that is within your ability. Do not believe in the sterility and hardness of the human heart. In spite of itself, it yields to true love. Love is a magnet that it cannot resist, and contact with love enlivens and fertilizes the seeds of the virtue that lies latent within it." So, dear Kardec Radio listeners, here is the message. Love one another, love our children. This will be the most important educational action that we all could do, and we are all responsible to be examples for the future generation. The only way you can teach our children the power of love is by loving first. So God bless all of us.
Welcome back, dear Kardec Radio listeners, to the Spiritist Moment. We continue on with our joyous study on Part 3 of the Spirit's book, The Divine Natural Laws. And as we gear up to really dive into the 10 laws, the good and noble spirits prepare us and they explain to us, well, what is with all due respect, the division of the laws? Well, if we go to question 648, the question is actually asked. Kardec asks the spirits, what do you think is a division of natural law into 10 parts? Which is covering the laws of worship, the law of labor, the law of reproduction, preservation, destruction, society, progress, equality, law of liberty, and finally, the law of justice, love, and charity. And they tell us, well, the spirits answer, the division of God's law into 10 parts come from Moses and covers all the circumstances of life, which is the essential point. You may follow that division, although it does not contain anything absolute, just as other classification systems do not, and which always depend on the point of view from which a subject is considered. The last law is the most important, since through it humans can advance the farthest in spiritual life. It sums up all the others. So let's pick at this question a little bit as we see that, well, first, the division of these natural laws is not absolute. What does that mean? Well, sometimes certain laws overlap into other laws. And we see this, dear listeners, as we will begin to study, we see the overlapping sometimes. So it's not absolute. But as the spirits let us know in question 646, 647, that, and more specifically, in the answer to question 647, the spirits let us know that people need precise rules. And that is an exact quote that the spirits let us know, that we need precise rules so we don't have misinterpretations. Very interesting, dear listeners. If you've ever found or asked yourself, why are there 10 laws? What is the necessity to break it down? Well, because we do need this organized discipline. As Emmanuel, the spirit guide of the well-known Brazilian spiritist medium, Francisco Cândido Xavier, had said to him once, discipline, discipline, discipline. So we know we need to have these rules broken down for us to really, truly understand them. Not only that, dear listeners, it is so wise of the spirits, and they let us know in these 3 questions and answers that the natural laws cover all of life's circumstances, and we find this as well. When we really begin to study, we see that almost many circumstances in our lives that each one of us as immortal souls we endure, they cover to some extent or another. So it truly is a helpful guide for each one of us as immortal beings to study it. And we've learned already in the beginning of this chapter that studying the moral laws, we get closer to our happiness and closer to finding more balance and understanding and more peace in our lives, dear listeners. So, just some thoughts for us to really think about, really reflect before we truly dive into the study of the 10 natural laws, are the thoughts that the spirits will leave us with as they end the introductory part of the divine or natural laws. And they say to us in the last sentences that the last law, which they are referring to, the law of justice, love, and charity, they say that the last law is the most important, since through it, humans can advance the farthest in the spiritual life. It sums up all the others, something for us to truly meditate about. And that's not to say that all the other laws have no significance and we shouldn't pay much attention to them. No. But the law of justice, love, and charity is something we should pay with great attention to, and the others as well, but especially the law of justice, love, and charity. Dear listeners, now is the time we urge you to begin to study the natural and divine laws with us, as the next many weeks ahead, we will begin to dive in, and the first law will be the law of worship. So go ahead, prepare yourselves through prayer, find time to study, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and find time for your spiritual nourishment, because that is the true nourishment of our eternal and immortal souls. And as always, dear friends, until next week and until next time, we wish you many blessings.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Do you find yourself with no time to stop and read or meditate about Spiritism or spirituality? We have a great solution for you. The audio CD called Unfolding Our Spiritual Nature, Path of Harmony by Ra Tashira is an enlightening CD with a question and answer session as well. Feel the enrichment and purchase your copy today at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Learn more about indigo and crystal children with the book The New Generation, The Spiritist View on Indigo and Crystal Children by Devoto Franco with Vanessa Anzalone. Whether you're a parent or not, this book will enrich your mind. Go to www.ssbaltimore.org and click on Bookstore and purchase your copy today.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide. Subscribe now at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Now we return to our program.
Good morning, dear Kardec Radio listeners, and welcome to one more program with God at Home. I am Laura Fonseca.
And I am Gabby Ferreira. Dear listener, wouldn't it be nice to have a simple-to-follow recipe for happiness? Listen carefully to this story that is in the book Jesus in the Home by the Spirit Neo Lúcio and psychographed by Chico Xavier.
Tadeus, one of the most passionate speakers during the gospel services at Peter's house, was enthusiastically discussing the rules for human happiness and was speaking out against the Roman conquerors and the rabbis of the Sanhedrin. After he had expounded several valuable opinions on the subject, Jesus asked him,
Tadeus, what's your idea of happiness?
Lord, happiness is peace for all.
Yes, Tadeus, I'm aware of that. However, I would like to know what would make you personally truly happy.
Master, I think I would experience supreme tranquility if others could understand me. For that to happen, I wish that those close to me wouldn't disdain my noble and pure intentions. I know that I make a lot of mistakes because I'm human, but I would be happy if those who are part of my life would acknowledge my sincere intentions of doing the right thing. I would experience blessed joy if I could trust others and receive from them the fair consideration that I feel I deserve. I long for everyone's respect so that I can work with no hindrances. I would be delighted if slander were to forget all about me. I live hoping for cordiality from others, and I think the world would be a paradise if people who tread the same path would treat each other with the same respect with which I, myself, would like to be treated. Indifference and malicious lies wound my heart. I believe that sarcasm and suspicion were invented by the spirits of darkness to torment people. Ungodliness is like bile when directed at me. Cruelty is a phantom of pain when it comes out to meet me. Because of all this, I would be happy if my family members, close friends, and fellow citizens would regard me not for what I appear to be, due to the imperfections of my body, but rather for the amount of goodwill that I believe I have in my soul. Most of all, Lord, I would be extremely happy if all those with me on life's journey would grant me the right to freely experience my own kind of personal happiness as long as I abide by the code of the good in the field of my conscience without irony and irrelevant criticism. In short, Master, with the blessed recourse of suffering and time, I would like to be understood, respected, and held in esteem by others, even though I may not yet be a model of perfection that heaven would like me to be. The disciple stopped talking and displayed an obvious curiosity about what Christ would say about the matter. So, dear listener, what do you think Jesus would say? Maybe ask him to be born again? Move to another country? A complicated recipe? Let's hear.
Tadeus, if you desire happiness and contentment from the entire world, do unto others as you would have them done unto you. If everyone would follow that rule, we would very quickly spread the glories of heaven across the earth.
Welcome to our Yes, Youth Education Spiritism with Kardec Radio. I am Bernadette Leal, and I'll be spending a few minutes with you, inspiring to bring spiritual awareness and spiritist teachings to our youth, parents, and educators. Today, we will answer 3 questions on helping children to have a better awareness of the use of their free will, and also about choices and consequences. First question: how can I help my child to develop a better awareness of his choices and consequences? Since the moment children are born, they are thriving to be independent. They are learning how to do things on their own, such as eat, dress, walk, and speak, to communicate what they want. As they mature and develop intelligence, they begin to have their own thoughts and slowly start to make use of their free will. In question 843 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asked the spirits, "Do human beings have freedom of action?" And they answered, "Since you have freedom of thought, you have freedom of action. Without free will, you would be a machine." And he continues with question 844, explaining that we have free will from the moment we develop the will to act in a conscious and deliberate way. In the infancy and early childhood, free will is almost non-existent. It develops and changes its objectives with the development of the intellectual faculties. The child applies its free will to the needs associated with its age. Children will develop the awareness of their choices and consequences as they mature, but also by practicing the use of their free will and experiencing its results, which can have a positive or negative effect. This is a natural part of growing up, and as such, it is essential that parents allow their children to make some choices so they can learn from them. One problem we have in our society nowadays is of children with helicopter parents. They are parents who are constantly hovering over their children and are extremely involved in their children's lives, making most of their choices for them and being extremely overprotective. This can have serious consequences in the future because children and teenagers may not develop the ability to make their own choices. Consequently, when they get older, they will strongly depend on someone to help with their decisions, or they will make poor choices in life because they have not practiced that skill or learned from their mistakes. These children may grow up being insecure, lacking self-esteem, fearing the world, and having anxiety. Children need to practice making choices so they will learn how to be self-reliant when they become adults. So reflect upon your parenting skills and observe if you are giving your children the opportunity to make some choices. Depending on the child's age, you can start with simple things like picking up the movie they want to watch, choices of food, and what to wear, and then increase the level of choices and responsibility as they get older. We should also allow our children to make mistakes once in a while, even though we can foresee that the result may be unpleasant for them, but not harmful, like having a bad grade because they did not study for a test or losing a good friend because they were mean to him. Second question, should I then just let my children always make their own choices? A parent's job is to mentor and protect their children. We should not let them make choices in which would endanger their lives or that are not safe. Children and teenagers do lack good judgment every now and then, and if we do not stop them from doing something that is harmful, we may regret it later. The frontal cortex is a part of the human brain which is responsible for a person to make choices, judge what is right or wrong, focusing attention and see future consequences. It is one of the last parts of the brain to mature. Some studies say that it will not be fully developed till the age of 20. So children and teens still need our help to guide them in their decisions at times, because their frontal cortex is still maturing, and they may engage in risky situations. But keep in mind that it does not mean that we always have to make decisions for them. And as they practice, they will be able to make some wise decisions. Now, just allowing and guiding them their choices are not enough. The use of their free will should be connected with some moral teachings. Parents need to teach their children about moral values and the importance of treating others the way they want to be treated. Otherwise, children may not care about the consequences of their actions as long as the outcome benefits them. The use of the free will lead on how children cultivate virtues or vices. If they do good things and think and care about others when making choices, they will develop virtues. But if they are being self-centered and do not mind that they may hurt someone with their actions, they will develop some vices. So which one would you like your child to have? When you are guiding a child in their decisions, teach them to ask themselves, will my actions cause any harm or hurt anyone? And then reflect upon it before taking any action. It is very common to hear children blaming others for what they do. We hear them saying, I didn't do it, when they actually did it. It's not my fault. He made me do it. We should start teaching our children that we are 100% responsible for our behavior, feelings, and reactions. We cannot run away from our responsibilities. We learn in Spiritism that even though we may not be caught in the act or refuse to take responsibility at first, we still have to answer for our actions in the spiritual realm, knowing that the consequences go beyond the present lifetime. We have several examples of communications from spirits while living in a physical body that made poor use of their free will, harming others. We hear their stories and how they regret and are suffering because of their actions. Fortunately, God, in His amazing love for all His children, gave us another chance, allowing us to return in a new body through reincarnation to make amendments and progress. But just think of how much pain and suffering would be avoided if our children learned at an early age to act in a loving way and think about the consequences before they act, so they would not have to return to the material world to correct a wrongdoing. This is something that we, adults, should learn and put into practice too. Third question. Is it a good way to help my child to reflect upon the consequence of his actions by asking him if he learned his lesson? Even though there is always a lesson to be learned with all our experiences, independent of what the result may be, when we ask a child, "Did you learn your lesson?" it has a negative connotation. It is as if you were pointing a finger to him saying, "See, I told you so." It is like putting the child down, making him feel worse than he may already be feeling at the time. The spiritual philosophy teaches us that the goal is not to punish the person for what they did wrong, even though he will have to deal with the consequences, but truly the education of the person, the rehabilitation of the soul by bringing awareness of his actions, improving himself, and learning some life tools so he'll not make the same mistakes again. Therefore, a more positive approach to help your child to reflect upon what he did is to start by asking about his feelings. Children experience the outside world through their feelings. So ask your child how he feels after what he did. You want him to know that you acknowledge his pain or disappointment. Then, talk to him about past, present, and future. Past, as you ask him what he could have done differently in order to have a better result, and help him to see other positive choices or actions. Present, as he analyzes how he feels and what he can do now to help solve or remediate the situation. He will also be learning about forgiveness and healing. And future, as you talk to him about what he could do in case he finds himself in the same situation in the future, so that it would have a better result. Also, in any situation, there is always an opportunity to teach and remind your children about prayer by connecting to the Creator and his spiritual mentor. When your child is feeling upset, guilt, or not sure what to do, invite him to say a prayer asking for some guidance. Have your child not only pray, but teach him to stay quiet in the silence for a few minutes as well. If possible, practice some meditation. It will help to calm his heart and mind. Remember, prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening to God. Kardec Radio listeners, there is so much responsibility in raising a child, and a fundamental part of it is to teach about choices and how to make a good use of the free will. Free will is God's gift for us, so we can learn from our experiences. Many of our children are old spirits that in past lives made poor choices, and now they are back with us to learn and make amendments. Our job as parents, educators, and caregivers is to support and guide them on their actions as we educate and involve their hearts in the moral teachings and the golden rule of treating others the way they want to be treated, so they will be able to fulfill their purpose in this present life and progress. Thanks for listening to Yes, and if you have any questions you would like us to answer, please email them to kardec@kardecradio.com.
Dear listener, this show today was one of the shows regarding the campaign I Honor My Parents. And we here share with you tools. If you go mainly to the Gospel According to Spiritism, chapter 14, item 9, in the part of Spirit's teachings, the Spirit St. Augustine brings to us about children's ingratitude and family ties. And he states, ingratitude is one of the most immediate fruits of selfishness. It's always revolting to honest hearts. But the ingratitude of children toward their parents has an even more odious character. It is particularly from this point of view that we will look at ingratitude in order to analyze its causes and effects. In this case, as in all others, Spiritism has come to shed light on one of the problems of the human heart. We're talking about ingratitude as a byproduct of selfishness. And parents are people who come before their children, they lay the foundation, and when children come, they should honor their parents. No matter if their parents have problems, it's okay. Oh, be angry one day, be upset, disagree. But one thing is to disagree, be angry, and the other is really to shut down the doors forever. So we're talking about this ingratitude of those who came before us. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a much better society when we are less selfish and we're grateful to those who laid the foundation for us? Parents, educators. Yes, it's not easy. And here St. Augustine talks about previous lives, choices and experience that really create this ingratitude. But we need to remember, if you feel that your parent or your educator or your children, they owe you something because of previous lives, remember, you have no right demanding anything on them because you're not the judge. You're not here to sentence your parent, your educator, whomever they are, to anything, because you're not even entitled to demand. Neither are children. They cannot look at us and say, you owe me from a previous life. Okay, good. If you think so, because where is the proof? Previous lives' memories, they may be true, they may be not, because spirits may influence us to see in different ways. We cannot demand on anybody. We know nobody is a victim, so we cannot be ungrateful. Ingratitude is a byproduct of selfishness, and we'll pay a high price for it. So, to avoid it, the best way to go is always to pray. To pray that people really temper their spirits with better thoughts. And Kardec, in chapter 28 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, he talks about prayers to guardian angels, protecting spirits. And now we invite you to a prayer to our guardian angels and protecting spirits and the ones of our children. Let us pray together with Kardec. Wise and benevolent spirits, messengers of God, whose mission is to assist people and lead them on the pathway of the good, uphold us during the trials of this life. Give us strength to bear them without complaint. Keep us from evil thoughts and help us to give access to any of the evil spirits who may try to induce us to evil. Enlighten our conscience regarding our faults and lift my eyes from the veil of pride that prevents us from perceiving them and acknowledging them to ourselves. And you, especially, guardian angel who watches particularly over us, and all you protector spirits who have taken an interest in us, enable us to become worthy of your benevolence. You know our needs. May they be fulfilled according to God's will. Dear listener, it's a true opportunity for us to recall the meaning of this life. Let us not forget, a decision taken in a second, says André Luiz in the book Evolution into Worlds, can open an abyss of shadows for centuries. So let us really not indulge into invigilance, excusing ourselves from the duty to be fulfilled, because a second of invigilance can really turn out to be a lost pathway for a long time and lots of suffering. So let us take the mission of being a parent to our hearts and do everything we can, the best possible, to really lead our children to God, because that's the goal of the mission of parents. So, dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed, and if you have questions, comments, suggestions, please email us at kardecradio.com or kardecradio@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to listen to you. And we thank you, all the listeners who have been with us throughout the more than 60 countries and faithfully here supporting this work of the heart. After all, we all need nourishment for our souls. We thank all the team of the segments and the team at Kardec Radio for their support as well. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.